Hello, hello, hello. I am author and entrepreneur, the Cerebral Palsy Vigilante, Zachary Fennell. Today we are here to discuss taking a humorous approach to cerebral palsy, also known as CP. And I say we because I am joined by Ben Carrier, author of Falling Forward with Style or Cerebral Palsy Survival Guide, Humorous Edition. So, who
Yeah.
better to discuss humor and cerebral palsy than Ben? Ben, thank you for taking your time to join me today.
Oh, I'm just grateful, that you wanted to do this. I'm really excited. Actually, I'll be honest, this is the first time I'm on a podcast to talk about me or something that I've done. So I'm excited and I don't know where this will go, but I'm sure it'll be a lot of fun.
All right, very good. So as we get started, let's just go ahead and kind of give a baseline for anyone watching and kind of so that they can kind of figure out how they could possibly relate to you. So with that, what kind of CP do you have and how does that show up in your daily life?
Sure. Well, it shows up more now as I'm in my 50s. I know it's hard to believe, but yeah, where I feel like it is. So I believe it's spastic diplegia. Um, so really, my lower extremities, my legs are really tight. Walking is has always been obviously different. Never could try to fake it. I could tell a story about how when I was a kid, how I made up stories about having Charlie horses and stuff when people wanted me to join their sports teams and whatnot, but we can get into that. And yeah, so learning how to use reachers and all of that stuff. But throughout my life, that's been it. And um, I will say, I'm a Gen Xer, right? I'm an old Gen Xer. So as far as I went, I didn't think of myself as anything different. We didn't make any special accommodations for really anything for me growing up. It was, if you're going to be slow to get there, you better start sooner, that type of thing.
Yeah. And yeah, it's because that was one of the things I was interested in when being born in the 70s. So I was born in 87.
Okay.
So, and that huge difference though, because by the time I'm entering school, ADA's in effect, and IEPs and all that, a lot different from what you experienced so it was very interesting for me to kind of read Falling Forward with Style and get a idea of kind of like, what the world was like,
Sure.
prior to any legal uh, support for accommodations.
Well, the ADA wasn't even signed until after I graduated high school, or it's that same year. It was 1990, and that's when I graduated high school. So I went basically through all of my years of school um, where there wasn't really accommodations. Fortunately for me, I didn't really need a ton. There was chairs. There was a chair if there was a place that other people were standing. They just throw me a chair and I'd sit down. Um, that was kind of the extent of it. And really, I'll be honest, I didn't use it. I just stood and got tired. And I didn't want everybody to see me sitting when I could be standing. So, you
Yeah,
know,
I know because it's this like I had that same urge as a child where it was always about wanting to just blend in and be like
yeah,
everyone else, which is where my outro, my call to action for people, whether it's in my videos or my blogs, is don't blend in, blend out. Because
okay.
I feel, in my experience, when you try to blend in and be like everyone else, you're doing a disservice to yourself and you're kind of smothering your ability, your uniqueness, and your uniqueness, in my opinion, is something that should be celebrated. With you reading your book, one of the things that make you unique, one of the things that makes the book funny, in my opinion, is you have this fun fun use of imagery. Is that a talent you've always had, or is that something that's developed over the years for you? And, how has, growing up, can you share a story about where your cerebral palsy played, ended up playing a role in learning, in developing your sense of humor?
Yeah, so I'll be honest. I don't know if I had much of a sense of humor about my disability for a long time. Um, I would say when I got onto the lane, and probably the second time you read the book, loving living on the lane. I think part two, when I really got close with Todd and Joel and Corey, um, where they truly didn't give two hoots about, and and they were ripping on me like they were ripping on every other person. And it really made me realize that it didn't matter. I didn't have to be wound up about it. Um, I was doing things with them, forget it when I finally learned how to ride a two-wheel bicycle. The trike was fun, but the two-wheel bicycle was like freedom, and it was amazing. And we went miles and miles, and it was fantastic. But those guys, I need to give credit to my best friend in the world, Todd, for really not putting up with me sort of feeling any kind of way except, normal, because that's what I was. In his eyes, that's what he saw me as. So,
Yeah, I like to think that normal itself is just like this big misconception
yeah,
that we all have something different about ourselves.
I
And so if
agree.
we're all different one way or another,
Yeah,
whether it's a disability, whether it's family makeup, whether it is financially, like we all have something different.
yeah,
So with everyone's different, what does that make normal? A myth. And again, that's how my take on life and of course I haven't always had this opinion. It was growing up wanting to blend in, be like everyone else, and then realizing how that kind of suffocated myself, like it suffocated my true self, and how when I just, when I realized it was okay to ask for help. And you talked
yeah.
about, riding a bike. It's like you had that, there was that adaptable approach of getting those shoes and nailing them to
Oh,
the,
jeez. Yeah,
pedals. So it was very much being, figuring out how do we do this. When you mentioned Todd, it's funny because I think behind every successful person with cerebral palsy, and I use the term successful kind of hesitantly because what defines success. I like
yeah,
to, in my opinion, we can do a whole episode talking about success, but success, is really something you define for yourself.
sure.
But to get the best out of you, there's always seems to be that best friend. For you, it was Todd, and I loved how, Todd's like, oh, get in the swimming pool with me, and
Yeah,
recommended these therapy exercises. And at first, you were kind of hesitant, like, is he gonna make fun of me?
yeah,
And then it kind of turned into this real impactful moment for you? For me, I've done marathons, and the only reason I ever thought I could do a marathon and I tried it because my friend James kept
mhm.
insisting after I finally did a half marathon. He's like, "You gotta do a full. You gotta
Yeah.
do a full." And
That,
I was just like, I was like, I finally it was like, I'll do it if you do it, thinking that was going to be the end of it. And nope, James was like, I signed up, and I just put me in a position of, all right, it's time to
yeah.
say, back up what I said I was going to do. Another person who comes to mind, I don't, have you ever read John W. Quinn's book, Somebody Like Me? No,
No, no, but I would be interested in it.
yeah.
I So tell me about that.
So John's book, he has a milder version of cerebral palsy than I have, and probably you have. he served 20 years hiding his cerebral palsy in the Navy. And the reason he hid it was because uh, he, they wouldn't let him, take the physical and do all that
Yeah,
without first, if they knew he had cerebral palsy, they weren't going to
yeah,
give him that
yeah.
opportunity.
They sure wouldn't.
And so at the end of the day, though, John had a friend, his best friend, Phil, was a big presence in his life. So that's where I was drawing the
Yeah.
parallel to you had Todd, I had
Oh,
James, John had Phil. So it's so valuable to have that companionship to help, bring out the best of us. Do you think that your sense of humor played a role in being able to make friends?
um, yeah. So I would describe myself as, in high school anyway. Think about high school and all of the cliques back then. I don't know what it's like now anymore. I would have no idea. But back then, we had the cliques, we had the jocks, and we had
Yeah,
the stoners, let's say, or we had the grease monkeys, right? The um, and I just got along with everybody, generally speaking. I had like one or two good friends. Todd was one of them, but he hung out with some of his own people too that we weren't that close with. But I lived right across the street from him uh, growing up, so it was, you know. But as far as being able to get along with everybody, I think uh, that was just something that I did out of, I don't know, necessity for, I think I wanted people to like me, I guess. I wanted people to look past, here's this,
yeah,
look at me. And, so I was nice to them. I had a sense of humor. They could crack jokes either at my expense. I could do it at their expense. Um, Very rarely did I have anybody that was like, the middle school principal was somebody. If you notice in my book, the people that I like, I named by name, and the people that I didn't necessarily like, I never said who they were, their names.
yeah,
That was kind of on purpose because they're actually real people.
yeah,
Um, but when I left Senate Middle School, went back to Oostburg, um, and was able to rekindle that friendship with those kids across the street. Um, that really just sort of loosened everything up. I was able to talk to girls. That was, I mean, it's easy for some people, and it wasn't really easy for me. But I would say everybody was really nice for the most part, and the people that weren't nice, I didn't pay much attention to because I had my core group, my core couple of folks that that was it. And if you wanted to hang out with those, two folks, everybody had to be nice to me, and that's kind of how it was. So that's
yeah.
how it all kind of started. They didn't allow anybody to be any other way but kind to me, and it was good.
I, there's just so much to like a friendship, even just having that core few people who are going to
Yeah.
be on your side when someone does. I remember uh, playing ping pong with a friend back in college down in the rec center, and
Mm-hmm.
with my CP, my hand-eye coordination isn't too well, and so like I'm hitting back and forth with the ball from friend, doing my best, but like not doing a very good job. And this other guy comes down, he starts to like laughing. He goes, "Oh, you're not even trying this and that." And then it was my friend who kind of spoke up and just kind of told him like that's enough. And so
Yeah.
that's where, you know, having friends is so key. And when you can make people laugh, I feel like that helps a lot to make people want to be around you.
Yeah.
I'll share a quick story where humor kind of played a role, and then maybe you can share one of yours. where I was entering the dining hall, another college store. I was entering the dining hall to grab my food. There was a wet spot on the floor in the dining hall from, I don't know, some spillway. I walked, I stepped right in it, I slipped, and I fell. And the college I went to was a dry campus, so no alcohol. And so as I was getting up, I was just like dry campus my ass. And then all of a sudden it went from like everyone looking at me like this is awkward to like everyone was laughing
Yeah.
with me at my joke rather than, judging me because I fell. So do you have a similar story like that you can share about how humor played a like, an example of humor playing a
Oh,
role in a
um,
turning the tide in a situation?
I think so many stories of just being klutzy, on the kickball field. There's a game called kickball. I don't know if anybody's familiar with that, but as a kid, in middle school, we'd play this kickball, and like, um, I don't know what it's like now, but back in the day, you'd have like team captains, the best kickers, right? And then they would pick, and I was always the last one picked because I couldn't kick, right? And I at least two or three times where the ball would be coming and I would make an attempt to kick, I'd miss the ball and fall flat on my backside. And they kind of expected it, so it was no big deal. And then they'd laugh, and I would get up, and that was the end of it. Um, you know, I it's hard for me to just you know, I guess say all of these different things, but if I didn't have a sense of humor, I promise you, whatever we measure success as, I wouldn't be as successful as I am, or whatever that means, right? Um, Family. I have a daughter. I have a good job that I really like. Um, I have Todd, who was just on the phone with me or texting me. I was telling him I was going to be on your podcast, and he's all excited. So, whatever success means, if I didn't have a sense of humor and let some of the crazy stuff roll off my back, it would be hard to get through each day for me, I think.
Yeah.
Um, you
I think
know,
something you, because we've been going back and forth or like Facebook messages and stuff. One of the things that you said to me that really stuck out was something along the lines, this might not be the exact quote, but if you don't laugh at yourself, you end up spending a lot of time being miserable. And
right?
I think that is so, key. And I think another difficult balancing act is knowing like when is laughing at yourself, good and humorous, and at what point does the laughing at yourself become derogatory? So how do you man and like it's almost like you're putting yourself down before others could. So where do you have you ever felt like you struggled with that positive sense of humor to make a situation better where going too far negative and making it more just like, oh, I'm making jokes and putting myself down so other people will laugh?
But I don't know that that's a thing for me, Zach. If I'm being honest, there are times where I laughed at myself, maybe in front of somebody, and laughed something off, but then realized that what, maybe I need to start doing my stretches again, so this doesn't happen, or maybe I need to take better care of myself because of this. But that's all kind of internal. Um, I don't kind of let that out. I enjoy laughing at myself. I know I'm kind of a klutz, and that doesn't it really doesn't bother me. I don't get into what other people think of me too much. Um, they're not my wife. They're not my kids. If they're not that, it's I want to make sure that my wife thinks highly of me, that my kids do. And I don't know. I guess, to be honest, I'm not sure that I have that where I'm laughing to the point where it's kind of picking
Yeah,
on myself. I'm okay with that.
yeah.
You know.
I reading because I've read books before, like Cerebral Palsy memoirs, where I've gotten to a point where I just kind of like I kind of smirk at the joke, but at the same time, I'm just like, second, like I'm like, yeah, but I think no, it's just kind of being, kind of like more of a self put down than actual humor. Where I didn't come across that once reading your
Yeah.
book. It was very uplifting, very humorous. If anything, reading Falling Forward with Style just left me wanting more. I would have loved more. You
Well,
mentioned earlier about, like talking to girls. It's like I would have loved more stories about kind of like how
yeah.
how you and your wife, outside of working together, just
Mhm.
kind of like how those interactions came to be, and because and
Yeah.
earlier you also mentioned like being so much is internal. I think at the end of the day that's that's what I've learned in my experiences living with cerebral palsy, however you want to put it, because like I'm the same way. I call my I'm the cerebral palsy vigilante.
Yeah.
Cerebral palsy is a part of me. It's
Right.
not all of me. And
I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but I agree with that like 1050%, because I don't, I mean, with the exception of now, where I got elastic shoelaces, so I don't have to bend over and tie my shoes, right? Little things that I used to be able to do that just a little bit harder, maybe with age, with whatever. Um, but my life is my life. I mean, my job is my job. They don't care about that stuff. They want me to do what I'm supposed to do at my job, and it's just part of it. So yeah, 1000%. It's part of me, but it certainly doesn't define me as a person. It's you know, it,
I mean, in fact, reading Falling Forward with Stella, I kind of felt that it was not just like this cerebral palsy survival guide as
yeah.
have the subtitle, but it could also be considered kind of like that professional journey going from
Yeah.
odd job to odd job to odd job and finding, kind of essentially finding yourself to figure out
Mhm.
who you are as a person and what's going to fulfill you and, give you purpose. Because when I was a kid, it seemed like all the adults in my life hated their jobs. They
Mhm.
dreaded Monday. And I never wanted that to be me because I'm like, if you're working 40 hours a week or whatever you are working, it's like that is too much of a chunk in your life
I
to
am.
just be wishing it away, to be wishing you were
Yes.
done. And you got to be able to, you're going to enjoy your best life if you can enjoy going to work and enjoy where you are. And that is so like for me when I was working at the library, I kind of knew going into like this job description, these are the components that might not that I might have issues with because of my cerebral palsy.
Mhm.
So during the interview, I asked like, hey, no, what could be done here or here? And
Yeah.
right now I'm at I feel so blessed to be where I am at with my employer because they are very much, for whatever reason, whatever I can't provide them because of my disability,
Mhm.
I think they they see elsewhere that I'm providing more somewhere else. So I help
Yeah.
counterbalance that. And as a cog in our team, I feel valued, and I feel like everyone should be feeling
Yeah.
that.
That's fantastic. That's a great story, and I'm glad you're in that place. For me, you know, I again I go back to, I was born in the 70s. So, parenting back then was, come home when the street lights come on, and I don't want to see you until then kind of thing, where it was, I wouldn't say it was absentee parenting, but they didn't really give two hoots about it. And then I was on this dead end street where I couldn't go that far. So I basically was at the neighbor's house, with Todd. And there was a lot of that. It certainly weren't absent. There were rules that I didn't follow necessarily to the T, right? Um, I remember one time that I got called. Oh, I was over at Todd's house. We were lifting weights. We were doing something, and we got a call. And Todd's mom answered the phone and was told that I needed to go home and turn my light off in my bedroom. And I believe this is true, from what I can remember. She actually started laughing and then understood that they were serious. So she was like, "Okay, Ben, you got to go home and turn the light off in your room." So off I went. Where they
Yeah.
could have just flipped the switch
Yeah.
and told me about it later. Um, that's the kind of stuff. If I accidentally did that, that happened. Um, but for me, my work is certainly rewarding. I started out working in DME, durable medical equipment, really because I needed a job, and I knew what DME meant. I knew the acronym, and that's kind of how it started. And over time, I learned to really love what I was doing. Now, when I was a driver and having to lift all that heavy stuff, I had to do all of that like every other driver, and it wasn't necessarily easy, but I found a way to do it. And now I'm not doing that so much, but I love it probably even more because what I do can be mundane sometimes, but I always think of at the end of the line, there's somebody who needs our oxygen, who needs our hospital bed, who needs that walker that we give them. And I didn't realize that I would be a good customer of ours too, but I am on occasion, you know. So um, yeah, no, it's fantastic. I love what I do. I wouldn't trade it for anything, and I hope they can keep me till I retire.
That'd be fantastic. Because
Yeah.
again, like that is, it feels like it's a rarity.
Mhm.
And sadly, that, it's not, most people don't feel the way you and I feel about our professional careers.
Yeah.
And I do think having, again, having that sense of humor plays a role in that, where this morning, we actually at work this morning, we had like crisis response training. And
Mhm.
so it was like we had administrators there to actually like play out different crisis scenarios, whether it was an active shooter, bomb threat, just
Yeah.
like, wild fight, whatever it would be. And it, I kind of saw like, it can, the word going around the branches at the different was that it could be intense. So I kind of came in being like, all right, let's try to be lighthearted, kind of,
Mhm.
make, myself laugh, make my, coworkers laugh. Like,
Yeah.
perfect example is the security coordinator. We just ran through a scenario, and it was just emphasized like we do not give out anyone's, like, any employee schedule. And so the security coordinator, like, okay, go back to your spots. You're back to working. Next scenario's coming up. I grabbed the phone like it had run, and I'm like, no, BJ, no, I can't give you Steve's schedule. It is, I told you, we just had a security meeting on this, and that, caused my coworkers to laugh. And so it was a way I kind of
Mhm.
um, lightened the mood. And again, not, we're not defined by cerebral palsy, but I
Right.
do think having cerebral palsy does create ways where you become more, you go to humor as a uh, just as a way to cope when something might not be going right.
Mhm.
And so it's just like that, that sense of humor adds a value
Yeah.
to life. And is there anything that we haven't discussed yet that you kind of want to hit on before we
Yeah. So you were
wrap up?
talking about, you know, having a sense of humor, but the chapter in my book that I think it's called "I'm Sorry for This Chapter," and I forget. Let me see.
It should be chapter
Chapter
9.
9. That's what I was thinking. Um,
Yep. Sorry about this chapter.
Sorry about this chapter. So that was a big thing. So and I don't know, obviously I don't know what other people with disabilities are like, but I was trying to be accepted. I had a brother, right? My big brother was a troublemaker at best, and at worst he was a criminal. And it was very hard growing up with a brother like that. And so these kids across the street, Todd, Corey, and Joel, I just wanted to be accepted. I wanted them to think of me as a regular kid, and every breath I took, everything that was out of place, apology. And honestly, they're ripping on me for apologizing or making fun of me for apologizing. Got me out of that. I was in a place where I was not sure of myself, or I was very insecure, really about everything. Plus, it's probably that time, you're growing in your teens where your voice is changing, all that other stuff, and everything is going crazy. Your face breaks out and pimples
Yeah.
and whatever. But those guys handled it exactly right. They got me out of my funk. They got the cobwebs out of my brain, just by giving me the business. And I will say, this book I wrote specifically so most people can read it, whatever age, for the most part, probably from, young teens, right? But, it was a lot more colorful when it was actually happening. Sort of had a PG-13 rating and some of this stuff just because I wanted it to be, acceptable for most people, the book, because I think there's a good message in the book. Um, just to accept yourself. I'm very secure in my own self, and I wasn't always. And that specific chapter 9, where I'm sorry for this chapter, that was a real thing. And I'm so grateful to those kids for giving me the business and shaking it out of me, because they made me real, and they were true with their word. They were giving me the business, but they also made it that, hey, I'm safe here, right? I can knock something off the table. It's not the end of the world. So,
Yeah.
Just a fantastic time growing up on the lane. I agree with you 100%, Zach, that everybody needs a Todd. Your Todd could be James, your Todd could be whoever, but I am so grateful still. I actually got to see him, I don't know, about a month ago for the first time in a long time, and it was fantastic. We text and we talk on the phone, but I don't see him that much. But I was able to stop by his house. I happen to be in the area. We talked for like 2 hours, and it was just like I never left. And those are amazing friendships.
Yes, they are. And that it was fun for me
Mm-hmm.
reading as someone who read your book to just hear you now talk about that chapter, talk about the title, because I was getting how much it meant to you, the passion
Mm-hmm.
behind it, and when it's fun, like that, just that title, I'm sorry for this chapter,
Yeah.
just feels like could just easily be a humorous play on words, but it is a play on words, but at the same time you can tell there's deeper emotion there. And when you talk, I just love how Todd, spoilers for anyone who hasn't read the book yet, but I just love how Todd got you out of it. Was just one day was like not verbatim, but very close
Yeah.
to you're not sorry. You just
Right.
think you're a burden and you're not.
Yeah.
And it just we all need that because I've had moments where I felt
Yeah.
like I've been a burden. We gotta find the right people to surround ourselves with.
Yeah.
And we could be here all day talking
Mm-hmm.
about talking about feeling like a burden, talking about how to find the people to surround yourself with. But I think for now, we'll wrap up.
Okay.
So what do you recommend? Falling Forward with Style. Do you people just go to Amazon to purchase the book?
Yes, yes.
All
Go
right.
to Amazon. You can look up my name, Ben Carrier book. You can even type that out and
Yeah.
it'll pop right up.
I
Um,
will put a URL for the book to buy as well in uh, the description of this video for people to check out.
that's great.
Once again, thank you, Ben, for joining me. And until any parting words?
No, well, yes, I take it back. There's always words for me to say. I can talk for days. I feel like we need another hour. Maybe we can do that another time. But I think this is my background is blurry, but
Yeah.
um, this book is good. It's good not just for people with disabilities. This is good for anybody growing up that might find themselves a little bit sideways sometimes. I think you can relate to it. It doesn't have to be that you have cerebral palsy and you can relate. I think anybody can relate as we go from childhood to adulthood. Um, so please buy the book. I think you'll enjoy it.
All righty. And buying that book and reading more about Ben's story, before you go buy the book though, just go ahead and hit the thumbs up to show that you liked today's video. You know, for like definitely in the future, I could see you coming back then and us
Love
doing
it.
another round of this because there's so much more we could discuss. So for that video and more videos, make sure you are subscribed to my YouTube channel here and have hit the bell icon to receive notification every time a new video gets posted. Until then, don't blend in, blend out.
Right on.